Act 1. The World Before. October 12th, 1955, 6:15 p.m., a kitchen in suburban Ohio. Margaret stood in front of the refrigerator, staring at last night's pot roast. Her husband would be home in 15 minutes. The children were hungry, asking when dinner would be ready. She looked at the pot roast, cold, congealed, sitting in its own fat. And then at the clock, 6:15. She did the math again. Oven. Turn it on. Wait 45 minutes to preheat. Another 30 minutes to heat the meat through. 7:30 at the earliest. Stove. Transfer everything to a pot. Add water so it doesn't burn. Stand there stirring for 40 minutes, watching every second because if you walk away, it scorches. Maybe 7 throw if she was lucky. Either way, her husband would walk in, tired and irritable, asking, "When's dinner?" She'd have to say, "Soon, another hour." He'd give that sigh, the one that said, "You've been home all day. How is dinner not ready?" The children would whine, fight, beg for snacks, and she would stand at the stove, stirring yesterday's food, just trying to make it warm again. This was her life, every single day, for years. This was the world before the microwave. In 1955, reheating food was almost as much work as cooking it from scratch. There was no quick meal, no just heat it up, no 5 minutes and dinner's ready. There was only the oven, the stove, or eating it cold. Most people chose cold or threw it away. A typical day for Margaret looked like this. Wake at 6 a.m., make breakfast for husband and 3 children. Eggs, toast, coffee, pack lunches. 7:30 everyone left the house. At rouse to 3 p.m. She cleaned the house, did laundry, ironed clothes, ran errands, grocery shopping. 3:30, the children came home from school needing a snack. 4 p.m., she started preparing dinner from scratch because there was no other way. Peel potatoes, chop vegetables, season meat, get everything ready. 5 p.m., actual cooking began. Roast in the oven, potatoes boiling, vegetables steaming. 6:30 p.m., husband came home. 7 p.m., dinner was finally served. After dinner, wash dishes, clean kitchen, put children to bed. Only at 9:30 p.m. could Margaret finally sit down. 4 hours of her day, every single day, just for dinner. And if there were leftovers, if the roast was too big, if they didn't finish the potatoes, those leftovers sat in the refrigerator getting older until Margaret decided, is it worth reheating? Usually the answer was no, because reheating meant another hour at the stove, another pot to wash, another hour of her life spent standing, stirring, waiting. So most leftovers got thrown away, eaten cold, or transformed. There were 3 great rituals of the era before microwaves. Ritual number 1, planning every meal a week in advance. Women didn't just cook, they strategized. Because if you didn't plan, you couldn't possibly have dinner ready in time. Sunday meant planning the whole week. Monday pot roast, Tuesday chicken, Wednesday meatloaf, Thursday pork chops, Friday fish, Saturday casserole, Sunday roast again. You had to know days in advance what you'd be cooking because each meal required hours of prep. No spontaneity. No, let's just see what we feel like eating tonight, because tonight had been determined 3 days ago. Ritual number 2, cooking with surplus. If you were going to spend 2 hours making pot roast, you didn't make just enough for 1 meal. You made enough for 3. Huge pots, enormous roasts, giant casseroles. Because if you had leftovers, at least you had something, even if reheating it was a pain. Ritual number 3, transforming leftovers. You didn't just reheat, you transformed. Monday, pot roast. Tuesday, pot roast reheated. Wednesday, pot roast chopped up and turned into soup. Thursday, soup with more vegetables added. Friday, soup turned into stew. Saturday, stew mixed with noodles and turned into casserole. By Saturday, you had eaten the same piece of meat 6 times in 6 different forms. Because actually reheating it, just warming it up and serving it again, felt wasteful of time, effort, and gas for the stove. Better to keep transforming it, keep adding to it, keep turning it into something new, even though everyone knew it was the same meat from Monday. Restaurants had it worse. A diner in 1955 during lunch rush, 12 is to 1 p.m., 50 orders in an hour. Everything cooked to order, nothing pre-made, because if you made it ahead of time, reheating took 15 minutes per plate. The kitchen had 4 burners, 2 ovens, and 50 people waiting. The math didn't work. So restaurants threw away food, mountains of it, because a plate that came back half-eaten went straight in the trash. Not worth the effort to reheat. A study from 1958 found that the average American restaurant threw away 40% of the food it prepared. 40%. Not because it was bad, but because reheating it wasn't practical. The food was fine. The logistics were impossible. Back to Margaret's kitchen, October 12, 1955, 6:15 p.m. She made her decision. The stove, because the oven would take too long. She took the pot roast out of the refrigerator. Cold, hard, the fat solidified into a white layer on top. She scraped it into a pot, added half a cup of water so it wouldn't burn, turned the burner to medium, and stood there watching it. 6:20 p.m., still cold. 6:25 p.m., starting to warm around the edges. 6:30 p.m., her husband walked in. "What's for dinner?" "Pot roast from yesterday. It'll be ready soon." "How soon?" 20 minutes. That sigh. "I'm starving." "I know." The children came into the kitchen. "Mom, we're hungry." "I know. Go wash your hands. It'll be ready soon." 6:35 p.m. The pot roast was warming slowly. She stirred it, added more water. 6:40 p.m. Almost there, but the bottom was starting to stick. 6:45 p.m. She stirred faster, added butter to keep it from burning. 6:50 p.m. It was warm, not hot, but warm enough. She called everyone to the table, served the pot roast with leftover potatoes that had also been reheated and had also taken forever. 7:00 p.m. They finally ate. The meat was dry and overcooked from being reheated. The potatoes were mushy. The gravy was separated and oily. But it was food, and it was warm. Her husband ate in silence. The children complained. "This doesn't taste as good as yesterday." Margaret said nothing, because they were right. It didn't. Reheated food never tasted as good, because reheating on the stove meant adding water, which made it soggy, or burning it, which made it dry. There was no way to reheat food and have it taste the same, so most people just didn't bother. After dinner, Margaret cleaned up, washed the pot, washed the plates, put the children to bed. At 9:30 p.m., she finally sat down and thought, "Tomorrow I'll have to do this again." This was life for millions of women every single day, not just in America, but in England, France, Japan, Australia. If you wanted warm food, someone had to stand at a stove for hours every day. There was no shortcut, no hack, no quick meal. Until one day, one moment, everything changed. Act 2. The accident, October 1945, Bedford, Massachusetts, Raytheon Corporation. The war had just ended. World War II. Raytheon had spent years making radar equipment for the military, for planes, for ships, to detect enemy aircraft. The key component of radar was called a magnetron, a vacuum tube that generated microwaves, high-frequency radio waves that bounced off objects and came back. showing you where things were. Raytheon was very good at making magnetrons, the best in the world, and one of their best engineers was a man named Percy Spencer. Percy was 51 years old, self-taught, no college degree. He had dropped out of school at 12 to work in a mill, but he was brilliant, curious, obsessed with how things worked. He had taught himself electrical engineering by reading books, taking things apart, experimenting. And now, he was one of Raytheon's top engineers, working on improving magnetrons. One afternoon in October, around 2:30 p.m., Percy was standing in the lab testing a magnetron. Standard procedure, something he had done 1,000 times. The magnetron was running, humming, generating microwaves, and Percy felt something strange in his pocket. He reached in and pulled out a chocolate bar, a Mr. Goodbar, his afternoon snack. But the chocolate wasn't solid anymore. It was liquid, completely melted through the wrapper. The room wasn't hot. He wasn't near a heater. So why had his chocolate melted? Percy looked at the magnetron, still running, still humming, and he thought, the magnetron did this, but how? The next day, Percy came back to the lab with a bag of popcorn kernels. He placed them near the magnetron, turned it on, and watched. At first, nothing. Then, pop, 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 pop. The kernels exploded into popcorn right there in the lab. His colleagues heard the poppin' and came running. What's going on? Percy grinned. The magnetron is cooking popcorn. They stared, not understanding. The microwaves, Percy explained. They're heating the kernels from the inside. The next experiment, an egg. Percy put an egg in a metal tea kettle, placed it near the magnetron, and turned it on. One of his colleagues leaned over the kettle to watch what would happen. The egg heated from the inside faster than the outside. Pressure built, and it exploded. Hot yolk sprayed everywhere, all over the colleague's face. Everyone jumped back, shocked. But Percy laughed, because he understood. The microwaves were heating the inside of the egg faster than the outside, building pressure until it burst. He had discovered something no one had thought about before. Microwaves could cook food from the inside out. Percy spent the next few months experimenting non-stop. He built a metal box, put a magnetron inside, and directed the microwaves so the metal walls reflected them, concentrated them, made them bounce around inside the box, heating whatever was in there. He tried different foods, meat, vegetables, bread. Everything heated up fast, much faster than an oven, much faster than a stove. He had invented something revolutionary, a machine that could heat food in minutes instead of hours. He called it a microwave oven. Raytheon was very interested. They filed a patent in 1945. It was granted in 1950. And in 1947, they released the first commercial microwave oven. They called it the radar range. It was enormous, 6 feet tall, 750 pounds. It cost $5,000, the equivalent of about $70,000 today. It required its own dedicated electrical circuit and water cooling because the magnetron generated so much heat. It was not practical for homes, for regular people, but for restaurants, industrial kitchens, and the military, it was a game changer. The first radar ranges were installed in restaurants, hotels, and train stations, places that needed to reheat food fast, and they worked incredibly well. A plate of food that took 15 minutes to reheat in an oven was ready in 2 minutes in the radar range. A frozen meal that took an hour to cook was ready in 10 minutes. But there was a problem. People were terrified of it. Microwaves, radiation. It sounded dangerous, like something from a science fiction movie. Newspapers ran stories. Is the Raider range safe? Could microwaves hurt you? New cooking technology raises health concerns. Most people refused to go near it, and it was expensive, $5,000. Only big companies could afford it. So, for the next 15 years, microwave ovens stayed in commercial kitchens, hotels, restaurants, train dining cars. Regular people still used stoves, still spent hours reheating food. But things were about to change. Ast 3, the restaurant 1962, Newark, New Jersey, a small diner called Bob's Place. The owner was Robert Harrison, 43 years old. He had run the diner for 12 years. Bob's Place was a typical American diner. Burgers, fries, meatloaf, open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The problem was lunch. Lunch rush was 12 hours to 1:30 p.m., 90 minutes when office workers flooded in, wanting food fast. But Robert's kitchen couldn't keep up. He had 2 cooks, 4 burners, 2 grills, 1 fryer. Each burger took 8 minutes to cook. Each order of fries took 5 minutes. If 30 people ordered at once, they had to wait 20, 30 minutes, sometimes longer. People complained, "This takes too long. I have to get back to work. Why is this so slow?" Robert tried to speed things up, hired more cooks, added another grill. But it didn't help much because everything had to be cooked to order. You couldn't make burgers ahead of time. They'd get cold and soggy. You couldn't make fries ahead. They'd get soft and unappetizing. Everything had to be fresh, cooked when ordered, which meant slow. One day in March 1962, Robert read an article in a restaurant trade magazine about a new device, a commercial microwave oven, smaller than the original Raider range, about the size of a large refrigerator. It cost $2,195. Still expensive, but affordable for a business. The article said, reheats food in 2 minutes, no waiting for ovens to preheat, no standing at the stove. Robert was intrigued but skeptical. Could it really work? Could it really be that fast? He called the Raytheon sales office and asked for a demonstration. A week later, a salesman came to Bob's Place with a microwave oven in a truck. They set it up in the kitchen and plugged it in. The salesman put a plate of cold meatloaf inside, closed the door, set the timer for 2 minutes. Robert watched, arms crossed, skeptical. 2 minutes later, ding! The salesman opened the door, took out the plate. The meatloaf was steaming hot. Robert touched it carefully. It was genuinely hot, not just warm. How did it do that? Microwaves, the salesman said. They heat food from the inside, much faster than conventional heat. Robert tried it himself. Put a burger inside, set the timer for 90 seconds. Ding! Hot burger, perfect. Fries, 2 minutes, hot and crispy. Slice of pie, 1 minute, warm and perfect. He was sold. I'll take it. Great, the salesman said. That'll be $2,295. Robert wrote the check. It was a huge expense, a risk, but he had a feeling this could change everything. The microwave was installed 2 days later as the corner of the kitchen, taking up valuable space. His cooks were skeptical. What is that thing? Is it safe? Does it actually work? Robert showed them, demonstrated, put a cold burger in. 2 minutes later, hot burger. That's impossible, one cook said. It's not. It's microwaves. That sounds dangerous. It's not. It's just different. For the first week, the cooks refused to use it. They didn't trust it, didn't understand it. But Robert insisted. Try it. Just try it. See how it works. Slowly, reluctantly, they started using it, and they realized it was fast. Really fast. A customer orders a burger. The cook makes the burger, pops it in the microwave for 90 seconds while plating everything else. The burger comes out hot. The order goes out in 5 minutes instead of 10. Lunch rush became manageable. Instead of 30-minute waits, people were getting food in 8 minutes. Word spread. Bob's Place is fast now. I don't know how, but they're really quick. I can actually eat lunch and get back to work on time. More customers came. Lines got longer, but they moved faster. Robert's revenue doubled in 6 months. Other restaurant owners noticed, came by, asked questions. How are you so fast? What changed? Robert showed them the microwave. Some were interested, most were skeptical. That thing uses radiation. It can't be safe. The food tastes weird, doesn't it? Robert let them try the food, taste it, feel it. It tasted normal because it was normal, just reheated differently. But the stigma remained. Microwaves, radiation, danger. Most restaurants stayed away, but a few didn't. A few bought their own microwaves and saw the same results. Faster service, happier customers, more money. Slowly, very slowly, microwaves started appearing in commercial kitchens across America. But homes, regular kitchens, not yet. Even the smaller commercial models cost $2,000, $3,000. Too expensive for families. And they were still big, heavy, intimidating. The microwave was still a professional tool, not a home appliance. That wouldn't change until 1967. ACT4, the Revolution 1965. Raytheon acquired a company called Amana Refrigeration, a company that made refrigerators, freezers, air conditioners, everyday home appliances. Raytheon had an idea. What if we made a microwave oven for homes? Not a commercial unit, not a huge, expensive machine, but a small, affordable appliance that regular families could buy. Amana's engineers went to work, designing, prototyping, testing. The challenge was size and cost. The magnetrons were expensive to make, the metal housing was heavy, the power requirements were high. But over 2 years, they figured it out, shrinking components, simplifying the design, bringing the price down. In 1967, Amana released the first countertop microwave oven for home use. It was called the Amana Radarange, like the original but smaller, about the size of a modern microwave, maybe a bit larger. It sat on your counter and plugged into a regular outlet, and it cost $425, the equivalent of about $4,500 today. Still expensive, but affordable for middle-class families. Amana launched an advertising campaign, magazine ads, TV commercials. Cook a meal in minutes, not hours. The future of cooking is here. Imagine hot dinner in 5 minutes. But Americans were skeptical. Microwaves in my home? Isn't that dangerous? Won't it give me cancer? Won't it ruin the food? The fears were real and widespread. Amana had to educate people, explain how microwaves worked, that they were safe, that they had been tested for years in commercial settings. They published pamphlets, held demonstrations in department stores, hired home economists to show people how to use them safely. Slowly, very slowly, people started buying. The early adopters were working women who had jobs outside the home, who didn't have time to spend 3 hours cooking dinner every night. Women like Linda, Phoenix, Arizona. Linda Martinez was 32 years old, married, 2 children ages 7 and 9. She worked as a nurse at a hospital, day shift 7:00 a.m. to 5:00 p.m. Her husband Carlos worked construction, same hours. They both got home around 5:30 p.m., exhausted, and then Linda had to make dinner. Every night, the same routine. Walk in the door, tired, the kids hungry and asking for snacks. Linda would start cooking immediately. Boil water for pasta or rice. Brown some meat. Chop vegetables. Carlos would sit in the living room watching TV, decompressing. Linda would be in the kitchen standing, stirring, checking. By 7:30 p.m. dinner would be ready, finally. They'd eat, clean up, get the kids ready for bed. By 9 p.m., Linda and Carlos would collapse on the couch, too tired to talk. This went on for years, until one day in March 1978, Linda was at work on her lunch break in the nurse's lounge. Her co-worker Susan was heating up leftovers in a microwave. Linda watched, curious. Susan put a container in the microwave, pressed some buttons. 2 minutes later, ding, hot food. "That's convenient," Linda said. "It's life-changing," Susan replied. "I don't know how I lived without it." "Isn't it expensive?" "It was, but prices have come down. I got mine for $350. $350 was a lot, but not impossible. Linda thought about it all week. Finally, she told Carlos, "I want to buy a microwave." Carlos looked at her. "Why? We have a stove." "Because it's faster. I could reheat leftovers in minutes instead of standing at the stove for an hour." "That sounds lazy." Linda felt a flash of anger. "I'm not lazy. I'm tired. I work all day, come home, cook for 2 hours every night. I'm exhausted." Carlos was quiet. "I want to try it," Linda said. "Just try it. If it doesn't work, we can return it." Carlos sighed. "Fine, but don't spend more than $300. The next weekend, Linda went to Sears, looked at microwaves. Several models, different sizes, different prices. She found one, a Panasonic, $349. Slightly over budget, but on sale. She bought it. At home, Carlos helped her unpack it and set it up on the counter. It was big, bulky, took up a lot of space. "This better be worth it," Carlos said. That night, Linda cooked dinner. Chicken, rice, vegetables. They ate, had leftovers, put them in the fridge. The next night, Linda came home from work at 5:30 p.m. The kids were hungry. Carlos was tired. Linda opened the fridge, took out the leftover chicken and rice, put them on a plate, put the plate in the microwave, pressed buttons, set it for 5 minutes, and waited. Carlos watched, skeptical. The kids watched, curious. 5 minutes later, ding. Linda opened the door, took out the plate. The chicken was steaming. The rice was hot. She set it on the table. "Dinner's ready." Carlos blinked. "Already?" "Already." They sat down and ate. The food tasted fine, normal, just like yesterday. But the time was different. 5:35 p.m. They were eating at 5:35. For the first time in years, they were eating dinner before 6 p.m. The kids finished eating, went to do their homework with time to spare before bed. Linda and Carlos sat at the table, stunned. "That was fast," Carlos said. Linda nodded. She felt something in her chest. Relief, deep, overwhelming relief. For the first time in 8 years, she didn't spend 2 hours in the kitchen after work. She sat down at 6 p.m. and just sat. She started crying. Carlos looked at her, alarmed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Linda said. I didn't realize how tired I was until now." Carlos reached across the table and held her hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't understand." "It's okay." But it wasn't just okay. It was everything. That microwave gave Linda back 2 hours of her life every single day. 2 hours she could spend with her kids, with her husband, resting, reading, just living instead of standing at the stove. Over the next year, Linda used the microwave every day, reheating leftovers, cooking frozen meals, making popcorn for the kids. It became essential, indispensable. She told her friends, her co-workers, her family, "You need to get a microwave. Seriously, it will change your life." And they did, one by one. They bought microwaves, and their lives changed too. By 1980, 15% of American households had a microwave. 1985, it was 60%. By 1990, it was 90%. The microwave wasn't a luxury anymore, it was a necessity, and it fundamentally changed how Americans ate. ACT 5, what changed forever? Let me tell you what disappeared when the microwave arrived. Number 1, the wasted food. Before microwaves, people threw away leftovers because reheating them was too much work. A pot roast from Monday. By Wednesday, it was in the trash. Not because it was bad, but because spending an hour reheating it didn't make sense. After microwaves, leftovers became valuable. You could eat Monday's pot roast on Wednesday in 5 minutes. Food waste dropped dramatically. Families saved money, threw away less. Number 2, the frozen food industry exploded. Before microwaves, frozen dinners existed. TV dinners, but they took 45 minutes in the oven. Not convenient, not fast. After microwaves, frozen dinners took 8 minutes. Companies like Swanson, Stouffer's, and Lean Cuisine exploded. They designed meals specifically for microwaves. By 1990, the frozen food industry was worth billions of dollars, all because of the microwave. Number 3, the time. This is the big one, the time. Before microwaves, women spent an average of 4 to 6 hours per day cooking and cleaning up from meals. After microwaves, that dropped to 2 to 3 hours. 2 to 4 hours per day saved every single day. For working mothers like Linda, this was revolutionary. It meant they could work full-time and still feed their families. It meant children could eat dinner at a reasonable hour and have time for homework, for family. It meant families could sit down together instead of someone always being stuck at the kitchen. The microwave didn't just change cooking, it changed family dynamics. It gave women time they didn't have before. Time to work, time to rest, time to live. But there was a cost, a cultural cost. Before microwaves, meals were events. Cooking was a process that took time, required attention, often involved the whole family. After microwaves, meals became transactions. Heat it up, eat it, move on. The ritual disappeared. The process disappeared. And some people mourned that loss. Food critics complained. Microwave food tastes terrible. It's rubbery. It's not real cooking. Chefs dismissed it. That's not cuisine, that's just reheating. Traditional homemakers felt defensive. I don't need a microwave. I cook real food from scratch. There was a divide between people who embraced the microwave and people who saw it as a symbol of decline, of laziness, of the degradation of home cooking. But for millions of people, especially working women, the microwave wasn't laziness. It was survival. It was the difference between eating dinner at 9 p.m. or 6 p.m., between spending every evening in the kitchen or having time for your kids, between exhaustion and balance. The microwave was freedom. ACT 6, the people behind the invention. Let's talk about Percy Spencer, the man who melted the chocolate. He died in 1970 at the age of 76, before the microwave became a household appliance. He never saw how his invention changed the world. He held over 300 patents in his lifetime, became a vice president at Raytheon, was respected and honored. But he never made much money from the microwave. When he invented it, he was a salaried employee. Raytheon owned the patent. Percy received a $2 bonus. That's it. $2 for inventing something that would become a multi-billion-dollar industry. But by all accounts, Percy didn't care about the money. He cared about solving problems, about figuring out how things worked. He was curious, relentless, obsessed with learning. He had grown up poor, dropped out of school at 12, taught himself everything. And he never stopped learning, never stopped experimenting. The microwave wasn't his goal. It was an accident, a curiosity. He noticed something strange, investigated, experimented, and discovered something no one had thought of before. That's the story of most great inventions. Not years of planning, but curiosity, observation, willingness to follow a strange idea. Percy saw melted chocolate. Most people would have thought, huh, that's weird, and moved on. Percy thought, why did that happen? Let me find out. And that curiosity changed the world. Today, there are over 1 billion microwave ovens in use worldwide, in homes, offices, restaurants. The microwave industry is worth over $10 billion per year, all because of melted chocolate. ACT 7. Back to Margaret. Let me take you back to Margaret, October 12th, 1955. Remember her? Standing at the stove, reheating pot roast for 2 hours while her family waited, hungry and impatient. Margaret is 91 years old now, living in a retirement community in Ohio. I spoke to her and asked her about those days. She remembered clearly. I hated it, she said. Every single night, the same thing. Cooking, cleaning, cooking again. When did you get a microwave? 1982. My daughter bought me one for my birthday. What did you think? Margaret smiled. I cried. I actually cried, because I realized all those years, all that time, I could have had this. Did it change your life? Completely. I started eating better because I could reheat things instead of just eating cold leftovers or throwing them away. Do you still use it? Every day, even now. I'm 91. I can barely stand for long periods, but I can still heat up my dinner in 5 minutes and eat something warm. She paused, looked at me. People today don't understand. They think microwaves are lazy, that real cooking is better. And they're right. Real cooking is better. But you know what else is better? Having time, having energy, not spending your entire life in the kitchen. The microwave gave me that. It gave me my life back. Act 8. The modern world today. 96% of American households have a microwave. It's the most common kitchen appliance after the refrigerator. College students survive on them. Office workers depend on them. Busy parents couldn't live without them. We take them for granted. They're just there. But think about what they represent. The microwave is a symbol of speed, of convenience, of modern life, where everything is fast, instant, on demand. We don't have to wait anymore for anything. Want food? 2 minutes. Want information? Google. Want entertainment? Netflix. Everything is immediate, and the microwave started that. In 1945, with melted chocolate, it taught us that waiting is optional, that there are faster ways, that time is valuable. Some people think that's good. Progress, efficiency. Some people think it's bad, that we've lost something, that we're too rushed, too impatient. Maybe both are true. Maybe the microwave gave us time and took away ritual. Maybe it freed us from drudgery and disconnected us from the process. Maybe it's not about the microwave at all, but about what we choose to do with the time it gives us. Conclusion, October 1945. A chocolate bar melted in a pocket, and the world changed. Not immediately, not obviously, but slowly, over decades, the microwave oven spread from labs to restaurants to homes, and it gave people something they didn't have before. Time. Time to work. Time to rest. Time to live. Margaret got 2 hours back every day for the last 40 years of her life. Linda got to eat dinner with her kids at 6 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. Millions of people around the world got their evenings back because of an accident, a curiosity, a man who wondered, why did my chocolate melt? Percy Spencer never saw how his invention changed the world, but we live in that world every day. Every time we press a button, hear that hum, and wait 2 minutes, we're living in the future that Percy created. A future where reheating dinner doesn't take 2 hours, where working mothers can have careers and still feed their families, where students can eat warm food in dorm rooms, where time is a little more yours and a little less consumed by the stove. The microwave didn't just change cooking, it changed life. And it all started with melted chocolate. Write in the comments, do you remember the first time you used a microwave? What did you heat up? How did it feel?